Hello, everyone. My name is Zack. I'm with the Peloton Consulting Group. And today I'm going to show you a demo or how I built it of a fun Anaplan use case or Anaplan app regarding fantasy football. So in some of my spare time, I wanted to aid my 2023 fantasy football experience by building out an Anaplan app and some pages that will, like I said, aid my fantasy football draft experience. So for those that don't know, fantasy football is a way for regular folks like myself to stay engaged, interacted, and make the NFL season even better than it already is. Essentially what happens is friends typically will join a league of 8 to 12 teams or people. You then draft NFL players, typically in the late summer, right before the NFL season starts in the fall. And then throughout the year, you're managing those players, you're managing your team, you're trading with other teams and competing against other teams, all leveraging real life, typically Sunday game examples for players' output or performance that week. So it's a fun way for folks to stay engaged to the NFL if it wasn't already easy enough to do that. So I'm very passionate about fantasy football and just the NFL in general. I typically play in 2 to 3 leagues with my friends and colleagues. So being that I'm very interested in it, I wanted to give myself any advantage this current season, particularly with the draft experience, which starts a fantasy football season, and give myself any leg up on my competition. So to do that, I leveraged Anaplan to help give me some analysis of players I really like that might be of good value and those that might not be of good value or I should kind of skip in the draft process. So I have a very small and somewhat rudimentary Anaplan app here. It's uncategorized. It's in our Peloton workspace, the company that I work for. And didn't give it too much glitz or glamour, but wanted to run folks through just a fun use case, a fun example of how I'm using Anaplan in my personal life for a fun activity, one that I'm passionate about. So here we can see my app. This is kind of my homepage. We'll come back to this last. But first, I want to show you my personal rankings. So in fantasy football, you typically draft 4 main positions. It all takes place on the offensive side of the football. So you have your wide receivers, your running backs, your quarterback, and your tight ends. There are other positions, but they're not very important, so I left those out. What this page allows me to do in this grid is it allows me to take different players across the league and rank those to my personal rankings. So you can see here, 4 wide receivers. I have a subset of my wide receiver positional players. And what I can do is select which wide receiver I think is first best, second best, and then tiers associated to that, right? Because if folks know fantasy football well, I have little conviction that Justin Jefferson will definitely finish the season better than Jamar Chase. However, I'm pretty confident that this group of players will likely perform better than this group of players, so they are in the first tier. Whereas this group of players will likely play better than this group of players, so they're in the second tier. So this is a way for me to break out by tier and by position players that I think will do better than others, and therefore creating my personal rankings for each position. So I'm continuously tweaking this throughout the summer as we get news out of training camp, which is happening now in August, all the way up until draft night, which is typically right around Labor Day. So this is my personal rankings. And like I said, whether it's on my phone using the actual Anaplan app or here, I'm continuously tweaking these players up and down based on news, injuries, and just real life examples coming out of their summer programs. This will be useful later when I'm able to compare who I think is a good player compared to what the platform I'm drafting on, which we'll see in a little bit, called Yahoo, what they and their experts think for positional breakouts or positional rankings. The next page here, just a simple paste template. You can think of it as an import module, basically just a way to get data from one source to Anaplan. If I had more time, I'd probably set up some integrations, perhaps happening nightly, where I can update this data. However, just for this simple use case, and I'm not updating it all that often, I just do simple paste templates from basically a CSV or Excel file right into Anaplan here. As it's not too many rows, I think I bring in 150, as you're rarely going to draft more than that many players. So what this is, two different grids here. One is a Yahoo paste template. So like I said, I will be drafting later this month with my friends for my real life draft in fantasy football using Yahoo as just a platform to host the fantasy football season and host the draft. However, there is another platform or site out there. It's called Underdog Fantasy. This is very similar, but a bit different. It basically uses a best ball concept where folks are drafting millions of teams all the way from the spring through kickoff. So right around Labor Day, I think kickoff is September 6th or 7th this year. So Underdog has a very sharp or accurate player ranking system because millions of folks are drafting players over the span of the spring and summer. So what this gives me is very sharp or accurate data for positional ADP. So what that means is average draft position. It's just another way to rank players according to where they're being drafted, like I said, by millions of other folks. So it gives very sharp data of where a player should rank. So just two paste templates here. Like I said, kind of think of them as import modules. I was just keeping it simple. It's very easy for me to take 3 minutes to just, grab an Excel file from these sites online and copy and paste them into this tool, as opposed to setting up automation. However, that's something I might do if this data does update more regularly. So here I'm literally able to just import or paste the metrics I need, which in this case is player and ADP, player and ADP. And that's really all I need from these tables. Down below, another, just simple exception analysis for folks, players that aren't necessarily getting a find item from this meaningless Anaplan text. Again, just coming from an Excel file into Anaplan, we need to be able to map those to our actual lists. The reason these are still blank is because they are very, for the sake of fantasy football, they are not very good players or positions. In this case, it's a defense. I don't need to be drafting defenses or using this tool to do so. So in this case, I'm fine leaving these folks alone or unmapped because they are not of consequence when drafting. Lastly, my Yahoo draft board. And this is a very fun page. I really like the way this turned out. And this is why I wanted to do this kind of how I built it or demo on this fun use case is mainly for this page. There's a lot of cool functionality here that I'm pretty proud of how it all came together. So this page is going to aid my actual draft experience with my friends in the 2 to 3 leagues that I play in this year. So what happens in a fantasy football draft is, let's say I'm in a 12-team league. Actually, we'll use an 8-team league example, as I think that's what this is currently set up for. So eight teams or 8 people in my league. I am at pick 6. So what happens is the first 5 people pick, 1 through 5. It then hits me at pick number 6, where I'm able to make a player selection. Then 7 and 8 pick. And because of the value nature of fantasy football, it doesn't then go back to the first person, like in a normal NFL draft. It's called what's called a snake draft. So then 8 and 7 are able to pick again. So that would be picks 9 and 10. And then because I was sitting at 6, I'm after the 7th, I have pick 11. So it's what's called a snake draft in an 8-team league. I have settings in the background where I can change this when I have a 12-team league, and then I can input my pick position. So you can see here, it's just all based on Zack's picks. That's all I care about, right? I'm Zack, and all I care about is my picks. I don't really care about it during draft night who other people are taking. Then I put some notes here. So I, fortunately, can keep 2 of my players from last year. So I'm going to keep Jefferson and Kelsey. You can see here, Jefferson's number 1 overall. Kelsey is roughly 10. If we go here, this will be a better look. Kelsey's the 10th ranked player. So I get to keep 2 of those out of 16 people that folks are keeping, because it's 8 times 2. So I have some really good value there. So I know, unless they get injured here, knock on wood, over the next few weeks, I'm going to take Jefferson and Kelsey with my first 2 picks. So my first live pick doesn't actually start until pick 22 and then 27, so on and so forth. So this grid just helps me know what picks I'm at, and then kind of some notes around what I'm thinking of doing with those picks as I do some mock drafts ahead of time. So now that we kind of know how a draft process looks like I said, picks 1 through 8 will occur. I'm the 6th pick, and then it'll work backwards. So it'll go 8, 7, 6, so on and so forth. These are some helpful indicators to help me know when my picks are occurring. So right now there are zero drafted players because we haven't started drafting yet. Current pick is number 1. So number 1 is on the clock, if you will. And until my selection, there are 5 picks that need to occur. And that's all to say it's not my turn currently. Another really helpful tool for me to identify what my rankings were, right? Basically taking from my personal rankings, is this positional best available area. So if I click on a certain position, such as wide receiver, I can see who is remaining, who has not been drafted, and my personal opinion of what those players should rank, or the positional upside of those players, again, broken out by the tiers. If I want to look at that by running back, I can do so. And this is a pretty nifty just display name, dynamic display name, because that's all I needed it to do. I don't need it to do any calcs or anything like that. So it's just a nifty display name based on those tier breakouts that I mentioned. If I leave this blank, you'll see that this goes blank, and that's how I want it. What I didn't do, that most platforms will do, is a breakout, a positional ranking, or a overall ranking based on these 4 different positions, all merged into one. So you'd have running backs integrated with wide receivers and all the positions. It's a really hard analysis to do. I don't have enough time to really commingle all those different positions. So I just keep it position by position. So if there isn't a position selected, because I haven't ranked everyone with all the different positions together, I don't have a ranking for that. So that's fine. So let's say the draft starts, right? I'm on my phone, I'm on my Yahoo app. I'm interacting with my friends, my league mates, and the draft has commenced. Typically, there's 60 seconds on the clock where folks can make a selection. So let's say that this wasn't a keeper league, right? So I'm not definitely keeping Jefferson. I'm not definitely keeping Kelsey. It's open for any player at any time, any league mate at any time to take any player that has not yet been drafted. So the draft clock starts, and player 1, pick number 1, is on the clock. They have 60 seconds, right? So I'm going to interact with my phone, the Yahoo app, as well as this Anaplan page. And I could probably set up integration to do so. It'd have to be pretty clever because it would be real time. However, I'm just going to do manual, right? So let's say at the first overall pick, my friend number 1 takes Christian McCaffrey, right? So I see that occur on my app, or I'm with them in person. They take Christian McCaffrey. So I mark Christian McCaffrey is drafted. Then do a refresh. You can see that Christian McCaffrey leaves from the drafted board as well as the Yahoo breakdown board. So I know I can't draft Christian McCaffrey. So he leaves. He leaves both. He basically leaves the platform because he's someone else's pick. So we have one drafted player. We're currently on pick number 2, and there's 4 picks until my selection. So again, if we look here, let's say the next person takes Austin Eckler. I'm going to mark this as check. When I do a refresh, we're going to see Austin Eckler leave from both grids here. All right. There's 3 selections until my pick. So for the sake of time, I'm going to say that Jamar Chase all the way through Tyreek Hill gets selected. Now we can see, cool, I'm on the clock, right? I have 60 seconds to make my selection. Who am I going to take? This is where this grid really gets used and is helpful. So to explain this grid a little bit more before I make my selection, what it does is it takes the current ranking system of Yahoo. So that's why we have our row numbers here. And it's just according to the paste template from Yahoo, because I want to look at it aligned to my Yahoo app. So I'm not searching back and forth for players that are at different rankings. I want it to be perfectly aligned to Yahoo. So that's where the paste template comes in. We have our Yahoo ADP. So this is average draft position from the Yahoo app. We have our blended rank, which I created. So what this is it's hard to determine if your league mates are going to draft based on rankings. So these are expert rankings. ADP, which uses your colleague's average draft position. I blended that. So I said take 75% of, I think I said take 75% of ranking and 25% of ADP. And that's my Yahoo blended rank. I then take in the underdog rank, which we saw earlier. Again, this is the sharpest data for average draft position. So this is going to tell me, out of millions of people who've been doing this, which Yahoo doesn't necessarily have, where are these players going, right? I do a variance against that to figure out who is of value and who is not by position. So you can see here in this little range, right? This little range, because you typically don't want to be drafting, Justin Jefferson's here. That's kind of the first overall ranked player. I don't want to be going, dozens of players down. It's just not good value. So you typically look in chunks of like 5 to 10 players. You can see here that Nick Chubb is not a very good value. Yahoo has him at ADP at 10, the rankings at 7. So it's going to be roughly 7, a little north of 7. However, underdog ADP, most folks aren't taking him till pick 12. So that's a really bad value in Yahoo. However, if I look at, Jefferson, or in this case, Kelsey, really good value. Yahoo blended rank says don't take him till 9 typically. However, most folks, millions of folks, are typically taking him around pick 6. Right? So Travis Kelsey is a very good value. Maybe I don't want tight end that early soon, though, right? Tight end number 1 is our positional rankings. So maybe I want to see who is my best wide receiver. I know I want to start with wide receiver this year. You can look here. We can see that Justin Jefferson's still available. We know we took some wide receivers, if you remember, such as Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp. So those people have left, right? This is filtered out based on who's been drafted. I think with all this analysis, I think I want to take Justin Jefferson with my first overall pick. Oh, excuse me. That's the cue to target, and that's my bad. So I draft Justin Jefferson. He then leaves the picture. Cue target, this is a way for me to identify who are folks I really like just based on a feeling about them or this variance analysis. Or do I have Amon-Ra St. Brown or Garrett Wilson? I have them ranked a decent amount ahead. I have them at 7 and 8 respectively. Yahoo has them at 9 or 10. Right. So I think that they're a bit better than what Yahoo has them at. So I'm going to target those guys. And their variance is very good. Right. So those are some key indicators that help me make these picks. Right. And then I would just go through the draft process. I would continue tracking who my opponents are drafting, who I'm drafting. And that's going to, again, filter out who's already been drafted. I can't take those folks, those players. And then, when it becomes my turn, look at these cues. Look at the variance, look at my rankings to identify, players I like or players I probably want to stay away from, right? In this particular case, Tyler Lockett is typically drafted on Yahoo between 47 and 59. so roughly 50. However, on underdog, he's not taking until 62. So he's roughly a whole round or 12 players behind. So that's a really bad value. When I'm done with this draft, right, I can just reset drafted players. It just brings everyone back, resets the filters essentially, and I can do this again, whether it's a mock draft, a real life draft, whatever it might be, right? So again, that's my fun use case of using Anaplan to aid my fantasy football drafting experience through some pretty nice metrics here that at least I find are helpful to identify players of value and players that aren't so valuable or kind of a little too overrated. I hope you enjoyed this Anaplan demo, or how I built it and why I built it, for a fun NFL use case. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.